You'll notice that 4.C.33 is an extremely similar problem, although this person didn't make money on selling their stocks. They probably saw the value of a stock dropping, and before they lost too much, they sold it at a loss. So 5 years after they paid $2,900 for some shares in a startup company, they sold them for only $1,600. The difference between what they paid for it and what they sold it is the loss, and that's $1,300 they lost. If we go to our calculator, you'll see easily that when you subtract, make sure I got the right values from the problem, it was sold at $1,600 and purchased at $2,900. So 1,600 minus 2,900 still is the value you sold at it minus what you paid. And it's negative 1,300 because you sold it for less than you paid for it. That's why you lost money on the transaction. Find the percentage that you sold it, that you lost in total. You divide that by that negative 1,300 by the original amount you paid for it, which is 2,900. We'll notice this is a negative decimal. And to the closest three decimal places, that would be negative 0.448, which is negative 44.8%. You could do all this in one fell swoop by dividing 1,600 minus 2,900, putting in parentheses all by 2,900, and getting the same negative 44.8% in decimal form. So getting back to the problem, you'll see if we put a negative sign, and some of you, probably on all your computers and your screens, you can put a dash, because my MATLAB understands a dash as either minus or a negative. Again, remember the loss was negative 44.8%. We can check our answer and see that's how you get total return, which is negative because you lost money. Your annual return is also going to be negative because you lost money, and it is computed the same way. You still divide the value that you sold the stock at by the value you paid for the stock. And in this case, because you sold it after 5 years, you would take the fifth root, which is also done by taking it to the 1/5 power. And then you have to subtract 1 to find the annual rate of return. I'll do it slowly, one step at a time, by first dividing 1,600 by the 2,900 that you paid for it. And I'm going to take the fifth root of that, which is done by raising that to the 1/5 power, just for good form, because many of you have to put parentheses on the 1/5. I'll do that separately, and then you'd have to subtract 1. But you'll notice because this value is less than 1, when you subtract 1 from it, you get a negative value. And to the closest thousandth, that's negative 0.112, which is the decimal form of negative 11.2%. You can do all this in one calculation as was modeled before, dividing 1,600 by 2,900 and raising that all to the 1/5 power. And then, after getting out of exponent land, subtracting 1 will yield the same negative 11.2% in decimal form. So the annual rate of return is negative 11.2%.